In the dark corners of Colbeck Prison, you and your comrades sit at a table out of the prying eyes of the guards. With your makeshift deck of cards and your collection of broken guard cogs as your currency, you perhaps are plotting your escape, but more so, you're just looking for a way to relieve a little stress and perhaps earn a cog or two from your compatriots. Welcome to Wisco Dice! Hey yo folks, I am your host, Conesy with the Most, and I am here today to teach you how to play Goblin Vaults from Thunderworks Games, designed by Keith Majeka and Eric Schultman. Apologies if I butchered those names. Goblin Vaults is a game for 1 to 5 players and plays in, roughly 30 to 45 minutes. During this tutorial, I'll teach you how to set up the game for 3 to 5 players, as well as how to go through the turn sequence and play. We'll also cover endgame scoring and how it can be varied up from game to game. Additionally included in the box are alternate rules for solo play and 2-player play. I won't be covering the specifics, but I'll touch on a few of the aspects that are built in to just cover that piece. But before I dive into the tutorial, I did want to ask you to please give us a like on this video, drop a comment in the comments below if you have any questions, and of course, subscribe to the Wisco Dice channel. All of these things really do help tell us here at Wisco Dice that we need to keep making more of these videos and more of this type of content for you, the viewers. In Goblin Vaults, you will be playing a card game against your opponents to ultimately see who can score the most points by the end of the game. With that, let's start with talking a little bit about the anatomy of a card. Each card is defined by its suit. In this case, this suit of this card is a coin, depicted by the artwork here as well as up here. It's also, if you're wanting, you can have the color as well. So this is a yellow card, also denotes the suit. The strength or number of the card is a 1. Cards are numbered 1 through 10. Each card will have a faction symbol. These will vary based on the cards. These cards will have this representation that indicates where in your vault you want to have this card positioned. We'll talk more about vaults later. Finally, for solo and 2-player play, this symbol is denoted down here. This gives instructions to the AI player or players on where to or how to place this card. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to ignore that because we are going to set this game up for a 3-player game as part of our tutorial, but it's the same setup, just more cards for a 3 to 5-player game. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and set the game up. So the first thing the game recommends that we do in the setup instructions is to set up our basic goal, or for our basic goal card. So the basic goal card, the goal cards are 2-sided and have text instructions about end game scoring on them. For the first game, it is recommended that you play with the cluster as your basic goal. We'll put that off to the side here, out of the way. In addition, the next step is to choose your suit goal cards at random. You'll ultimately shuffle up, and these are also 2-sided cards, so with different goals on each side. So you will shuffle up these cards, deal out 2 additional endgame goal cards, regardless of the number of players, and put them in play. For your first game, it is recommended to use Tome Library and Gimnax's Reign. Okay? These are of the suits of tomes and crowns, denoted by the green and the purple as well, just like they were on the cards when I went through that explanation. Now you're going to choose a number of suit cards based on the number of players. Two of the suits must match these suit cards you've already selected, and then you determine a number of additional suits that need to comprise the deck that you're going to be playing this game with. For our purposes, we're going to be playing a 3-player game, which means we need 3 suits, 1 for each player, and an additional 4th suit to build the other draw deck and other cards that are going to be used. In a 4-player game, you would have 4 suits plus the bonus suit, and in a 5-player game, you're going to use all 6 suits included in the game box. Once you have that deck, all of those suits together, so in this case, 4 suits, shuffle them up. Make sure it's a very good shuffle. It's all randomized up. And during initial setup, we do recommend that you do have the suits all sorted out into each of their individual piles. It's just going to make your setup go a little bit faster. It does make teardown a little bit slower, but usually everybody's happy to help sort those cards out for you at the end of play. Now, we will deal each player a hand of 10 cards. So here is player 1, player 2, and player 3. The remaining 10 cards will be set up as a draw deck. There are a few scenarios where we will be drawing from this draw deck. From here, we're going to go ahead and set up the block. And the block is 3 face-up cards. So we'll draw those off of the draw deck to set up the game. The block will be in future rounds set up based on the interactions of the players. Finally, we're going to set a warden. The warden sits above the block and is keeping an eye out over the block and making sure that things are going appropriately. We'll talk more about the warden in a moment. Each player will get a faction card. So in this case, we will have the purple player, the yellow player, and the red player. They will get a faction token of their appropriate color, and they will get 3 cogs each. Take all of the remaining cogs and set those in a pool to the side in easy reach of all of the other players. Okay, in addition, you will hand each player 1 player reference card. Remaining player reference cards can be placed back in the box. All right, 1 player will be selected as the first player. In this case, we will have the purple player be the first player for the start of the game. And with that concludes setup. We will now go into the game round. Okay, now that we've set up the game, let's go ahead and walk through what a player turn looks like. Now, the game will last exactly 10 rounds, and that's because each player's hand will have exactly 10 cards. Each round, basically, players will play 1 card from their hand. They do not regain cards to their hand without ever having to discard as well. So therefore, the round timer is the player's hand. Once all players run out of cards, the game is over. We advance to final scoring. Now, in a round, you will have 3 phases. The first phase is the scheme phase. Second phase is going to be the vault phase, and finally, the warden phase. Let's start with talking about the scheme phase. During the scheme phase, players in player order will place their bids on any one of these cards in the block. Players placing a bid will take a look at their hand of cards and choose one of those cards to bid on the cards in the block. Highest number will win the bid, ultimately, as determined in the vault phase. For the purposes of this game, let's go ahead and show an example of the scheme phase. So purple player here is going to go ahead and bid an 8 for this 4. Now when they place their card here, it is very important that they also use their player marker to help us remember that this 8 is the card that they bid. Next, we move on to the yellow player. Now the yellow player looks at these cards and they're going to decide that they want to bid on this one. Looking at their hand, they've got a couple of 10s in their hand, so they're going to come out with a very strong bid, and they're going to bid on that red 6 here, and they place their player marker on that. Now, the red player's turn. The red player looks at the bids. These two cards are fairly attractive, and that's largely because of the position they want to go in your vault. We haven't talked about claiming cards or positions in vaults yet, but just remember that for when we get there. This card's okay. They wouldn't have to bid much of anything. They know they bid the lowest card possible. They will just win this card, but the position in the vault isn't necessarily favorable for them. But it does have their faction symbol, which is favorable for them. However, for the purposes of this, I want to talk a little bit about underbidding. So in this game, you can bid more, always bid more than somebody else. So in this case, I could bid this 9 here as the red player. That would outbid the 8 and is a valid bid. The other thing that I could do is I could bid this, let's say that same 9 here. Now, if I choose to willingly underbid, I would have to take one of my cogs for each card I underbid and place that on the card I underbid. So if there were 2 cards here, let's say this was a 4-player game and 2 other players had already bid on this and I'm going to underbid them, I would have to place a cog on both of those cards. In this case, I only have to place a bid, spend a single cog to bid on this card, to underbid this. Now, we'll see why I might want to underbid in a moment when we go ahead and reveal the bids in the vault phase. However, that does conclude our walkthrough of the scheme phase. So let's go ahead and move now on to the vault phase. Now, any card that does not receive a bid on it, like this 5 here, will get 1 cog from the supply added to it on top. In a future round, if somebody wins that card as part of the scheming phase, they would get to claim this card and the cog on it for their vault. However, since that wasn't bid on, we'll just place 1 from the supply and we will evaluate the next card. Since there is only 1 card bid on this next card, the winning player, in this case purple, will take this card and add this card to their vault. They will then take their player token back and return that to their player card, and this card gets now added to the block. Finally, let's resolve this one. Now, in this particular case, yellow is the winning bid. Yellow will get this card added to their vault. This card, their bid, gets moved into the block. Red, however, will get to claim their underbid card for themselves. That's a big reason why you might want to underbid in the future. However, if you also were the losing bid, it doesn't matter if you were how you were the losing bid in this particular case, you get your card back. So you may want to, as part of your strategy, play cards sometimes that you may, hey, I'm perfectly happy if I win this card, but I'm also just as happy if I get my own. All right, now that concludes the vault phase. But I do want to take a moment and talk about the vault. All right, let's take a little bit more in-depth look at the purple player's play area, which we currently have set up. We've played a couple of rounds into the game, and so far the Goblin player has acquired 2 cards, and they have just acquired this 3rd card during the vault phase. Let's talk about options for where they can put it. Your vault in your player area is comprised of 4 columns, of which they currently have 2 started, so they could start 2 additional columns with no more than 3 cards represented in the column. Remember when I explained the cards and I talked about this position, this darkened card indicates the position the card wants to be in. So in this case, this card wants to be in the 1st position in the vault. However, there is no requirement when placing the card that it had to go in that spot. It could have went in the 2nd or the 3rd position in the column. Since they just acquired this 10 that wants to go in the vault in the 1st position, it's pretty easy to just have them place that card in the vault in that position. However, in another future round, they acquired this 5 in the next round. Now, this card wants to go in the 3rd position in a vault. Well, they don't have any cards in the 2nd position, and it must go down in the next available position. So in this case, it has to go in the 2nd position in one of these 3 columns, or it could go in the 1st position of the 4th column. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, at the end of the game, you will have 10 total cards in your vault in the various positions. Most likely, you'll have 3 columns filled and 1 incomplete, but it could be that you have 2 columns filled and 2 cards in each of your remaining columns. The decisions and the strategy is up to you. For the purposes of this, we're going to place this card here. Now, to follow that example one more time, look, we just won this card. This is an 8 of crowns that wants to go in the middle position. Well, this one's really easy. Now, let's say I later acquire another middle like this, and I've placed it right there. And I win a warden action. Now, remember when I explained warden actions that one of the things you can do is discard a card out of your hand and place it on the bottom of the warden deck or the draw deck and draw the top card off the draw deck to add to your hand. The other thing you could do with that warden action is swap the position of 2 cards in your vault. Well, I really don't like this card being here, and I really don't like this card being here because they're out of position. So this is what swapping looks like. I could not swap this card to this position because there is no card currently in this 4th vault spot to swap with. I must always have a card that's already in play to be able to swap. So be careful because you're not going to get that many opportunities to swap cards during gameplay. Let's wrap up the turn by talking about the warden phase. The warden phase is where the current active 1st player gets to choose if they want to leave the warden in place or if they want to swap it with one of these 3 cards in the block. So let's say they did that. Okay. From there, 1st player moves to the next player and we start the next round. That's basically how a round works in Goblin Vaults. Now, let's talk about warden actions and then we'll talk about the vault. Warden actions are when players in their player order go ahead and play a card that matches the faction symbol printed on the warden. So in this case, the purple player played that 9 to that was their bid for this 8. Then, once they completed their bid, during the scheme phase, they would then go ahead and look to see if their faction symbol matches the warden. In this case, it does. When that happens, they can do one of two things. First thing they could do is they can rearrange any two cards in their vault. We'll get into the vault and how the cards and the layout in the vault works in just a moment. The other thing they can do is they can discard one of their cards from their hands. So let's say this green one tome they don't want anymore. They discard that to the bottom of the deck and immediately draw the top card of the deck and add it to their hand in secret. Those are the two things you can do with your warden actions. All right, we have reached the conclusion of our game and we have played all 10 cards out of our hands. Now it is time to move on to final scoring. Included in the game box is a handy score pad. This is exceptionally useful for helping the players score their endgame scoring. However, there is no included pen or pencil, so make sure that you grab one. I like to grab, in games that need a pen or pencil, I love to be able to grab a spare pen or pencil and keep it in the box, or have a cup of pens handy near my gaming area, just a top tip. Now, you can flip your player reference card over, and it has all of the final scoring options on the back, so that will be helpful for players who are playing during the game to kind of refer back to how they score points. The first thing you're going to score points for is 1 point for each remaining cog you have left. So in this case, the purple player would score 3 points for that. The next thing you're going to score points for is the position of your cards in your vault. So for the first tier cards, you will score a single point. Look, they have all 4 cards that they placed in the first position in their vault in the correct positions. They're going to score 4 points for that. Then we'll look at the second spot in the vaults. In this case, they have 3 cards they were able to manage to play in the second spot in the vault. However, only 2 of them have their positions correct. That means they get 4 points, 2 points for each one that was in the position correct for that second tier. You'll get 3 points for each card that's in the correct position in the third tier. Again, they only were able to play 3 cards in the third tier. However, only 2 of them match the correct spot, and so they will get 6 points for that. 14 points off of positional scoring. Pretty good start with the extra 3 points for the cog. Now, every time they match their faction symbol on the cards, they will get an additional 2 points. In this case, the purple player's faction symbol is the 3 swords or daggers. They only had one of those cards, so they're only going to get 2 points. Kind of a shame. If they were the red player, they would have had all sorts of faction symbols here. Now, we will then evaluate the end game scoring goals to see if they achieve these. Cluster being score each chamber with 3 cards that worked in sequential order. They did not accomplish any of those, but if they would have succeeded, each chamber, each one of these columns is called a chamber, would have been worth 9 points. The tome library, they'll score each chamber with at least 2 tome cards. Well, they got a tome suit here, but that's the only tome suit they get, so they don't get any points for that as well. Finally, Gimnax's Reign, score each chamber in which the highest value card is a crown. Well, this first chamber definitely scores. Second chamber definitely scores. No crowns, no crowns. So they did score off of 2 of those. They would get an additional 6 points. Tally it up. That's their final score. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game is ultimately declared the winner. And that should take care of our tutorial on how to play Goblin Vaults. If you found this tutorial useful or have any questions, feel free to drop us a note in the comments below. I don't believe I made any errors during the explanation, but I am human, and that can occur. If you do feel like I made any errors, please drop those also in the questions below. Of course, if you like seeing this kind of content, feel free to give us a subscription to let us know that you do like these kind of content and would like us to continue making more. Of course, liking the video also helps. Of course, Thunderworks Games and Goblin Vaults. This copy was provided to Wisco Dice as a review copy. However, we do not receive any funds or funding for the purposes of making this video. Hey there, it's Conesy. Thank you so much for watching. We put out videos weekly here at Wisco Dice. Check out our channel for more great videos and don't forget to subscribe. We also have more great content on our website at wiscodice.com. Of course, we do this all for you, the viewers, so please like the video if you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.